All right, guys, welcome back to Downtown Rams. As always, I'm Alexis Kraft, joined here with my co host, Jake Ellenbogen. And guys, we are coming to you live tonight to recap the Rams' win over the Baltimore Ravens yesterday in Baltimore, 17 to 3. Jake, the Rams are back in the win column, and it feels great. Feels good coming off that Thursday night football game. The Rams went to Baltimore, took care of business, and the score wasn't quite what I think people expected it to be. But nevertheless, it's a Rams win. And we saw a lot of good things from this football team against Baltimore. And that's what matters. I think a win is a win is a win is a win. Rams moved to 4-2, which feels nice, feels good. What are your overall thoughts about what you saw yesterday, Jake?
Yeah, I mean, if you had asked me this right after the game, I was a little annoyed that we only got 17 points. Okay. We only got 17 points out of the Rams. That annoyed me.
Yeah.
But then I watched the film and I had a different perspective. I had the perspective of Sean Dolak plays 35 snaps and looks like a stud. Warren McClendon Jr. looks better than Rob Havenstein has looked at any point this year. You start to see the Rams having to play in an uncomfortable position without Puka Nacua and adjusting on the fly. Matthew Stafford looking like an MVP, like he has. And you start to see the defense after last week being there at SoFi and watching the defense just give up dink and dunk after dink and dunk and just let Mac Jones march all over you. The defense really stepped up big in this game. And the Ravens, there was a lot of misconceptions about the Ravens coming into this game. First off, the misconception was that the Ravens are really good. Now that was proven to be wrong with the Texans. So of course that nullified the win against, the Lions had. It nullified the Bills, as we can see, on Monday Night Football, the Bills don't look so great. So the Ravens aren't who we thought that they were going to be. That said, the Ravens also aren't as bad as the iteration of the Ravens against the Texans last week. And I don't feel like everyone realized that. I broke that down in a video and I said, look, they're going after Alohi Gilman here. They get him. They're going to address the issue. The guy that started for them, Reuben Lowry III, last week was cut. He just got claimed by the Colts. So he gave up 2 touchdowns in that game to CJ Stroud. Now, Kyle Hamilton's back, who's one of the best, if not the best safety in football. Marlon Humphrey's back for this game. And you added Alohi Gilman. And you added Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. So, I'm not saying that they had a full, clean bill of health. I'm not saying that Lamar Jackson played. I know. But their offensive line was pretty healthy. They also got back Ronnie Stanley before he left the game and Joe Noteboom took over, and we can definitely see what happened there. But the point being is that it is hard to win in the NFL. This isn't Alabama versus Citadel. This is a Baltimore Ravens team that was in the AFC championship game last year, and they could have gone to the Super Bowl. That's what we're talking about right now. We're talking about a team that is one of the best, one of the class of, the AFC. And I know they're banged up and they're having a down year, but you went across country. You played at 10 a.m. your time, jet lagged for sure. And you showed up off a 10-day break after a brutal loss at home to your division rival, and you stepped up. And you held Derrick Henry, you held the Ravens at the goal line, and you never looked back. And so while it was 17-3, guys, I mean, they just dominated this football game. It really wasn't close in the second half. They left a lot of points on the field, and I get that, but that's a good problem to have when you're winning games. That becomes a problem when you're not winning games. The Rams continue to make stupid mistakes, no doubt about it, but they're still finding a way to win. And when your only 2 losses come down to the wire on the final play of the game, and there's some fluky plays at that with the blocked field goal, you have to feel good about where this team is at. Anybody that wants to say the Rams aren't a playoff team or wants to overreact, that's fine. That's your prerogative. But like I said, look at the Bills losing 21-7 on Monday Night Football against the Falcons. Look at the Eagles losing 2 straight, including one of which they lost Thursday Night Football by 17 points to Jackson Dart and the Giants without Malik Neighbors. This is what the league is right now. I've been saying this for a while, but the league doesn't have a ton of great teams. The great teams are going to come out of the woodwork in the second half of the season. And luckily, you're rooting for the Rams. They're a team that has been one of the more dominant teams in the second half of the season the last 2 years. And that team right there, those two teams in 2023 and 2024, simply do not have in common what this team has. Those two teams started horribly. This team is 4-2 and has people complaining about it. That's the difference.
Yeah, I thought, this game, as I mentioned earlier, it didn't go maybe how a lot of people thought it was going to go. But I think that some of the issues, that we have are really the same issues that stemmed from stuff that we've talked about in previous episodes, right? Leaving points off the board. 17-3, when this Rams team very easily could have put up a lot more points against the Ravens with the way that the Ravens played. And it was that same red zone. I mean, there was a couple mistakes, but you look at red zone play calling again, mishaps in the red zone, special teams with the kicks. We got the missed field goal, and then we had a Stafford fumble. Like, the game just started off a little bit shaky, which again is not all that unusual considering the fact that the Rams are on the road. They're on the East Coast. It was a very windy day. It was 10 a.m., their time, right? So whatever, but you show up and you play football. So the game started off a little bit shaky. But again, as you mentioned, the second half, the Rams really, really took off. And I thought that what you start to see there is with this football team is that our defense has its flaws, but overall is playing very well. I mean, this defense stepped up against Derrick Henry, right? We talked about that the last episode, and how, the Ravens, obviously with Cooper Rush in there, we're going to probably try to get Derrick Henry involved. And it looked right away. The first couple defensive drives, Derrick Henry did really well. And I remember thinking, oh no, here we go, right? Derrick Henry, he's in there, he's getting all these yards. I was like, maybe this is going to work for the Ravens, but the defense figured it out. It just took a couple drives. And then all of a sudden you started to see a similar story with Derrick Henry as we saw with Saquon Barkley and Jonathan Taylor. This Rams defense played very, very well against the run. And then you look at offensively, right? We start off having kind of those issues. Getting points on the board, scoring, kind of diversifying a little bit. A little bit on offense, but it was nice to see Jordan Whittington get involved, which I liked. I think we both talked about how we expected Whittington to have a big game, and then Tutu Atwell ended up being out, last minute due to a hamstring injury. So, that opened the door, I think, a little bit more for Jordan Whittington. And we saw Kyren Williams have an incredible game, arguably his best of the season, with two crucial back-to-back plays, right? That insane catch on fourth down and then scoring in the red zone, which is something I think Sean McVay, in all honesty, should get back to utilizing Kyren Williams maybe more in the red zone, considering that seems to be a problem for us right now. But Jake, Terrence Ferguson sightings, right? I mean, he wasn't quite utilized the way that I would have liked to have seen him utilized, but at least he's there. I think that that's the idea. I think it's like they're testing the waters. They're getting him in there a little bit, although I do think he needs a bigger role. We'll talk about that. And I just thought that things started to kind of, especially that fourth quarter, fourth quarter, start to like look more fluid for the Rams. Particularly offensively, which I think right now is the concern with the Rams. I mean, we have maybe a cornerback discussion, although I thought they looked great this game. But offensively, Jake, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought offensively, Stafford looked really good. I thought Kyren Williams was really good. I actually thought his best game was against the 49ers, to be honest with you. I thought he was fantastic in that game, and the fumble just kind of clouded what was a fantastic effort in the passing game. But, give Sean McVay a lot of credit. Hey, Kyren Williams, he works in the red zone. You're having a hard time. Like, trust me, I get it. It sucks. You want to go back to when, you were able to throw in the red zone with some confidence, Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, all of that. Well, right now you're not there yet. Okay. You will get there. You're not there yet. So just run it. just throw it. Just get it to Kyron, right? Because he is the guy that has a nose for the end zone, and that is just evident on film. But Kyron Williams in the passing game, they didn't like feature him, but when push came to shove, he made some really big plays. So I like that he was activated in the passing game once again a little bit more than he has been. And I think that was a big reason why that they were able to kind of pull away. And I know it was only 17-3, but I was thinking about this. Alex, I'm going to ask this to you, and then I'll get back to answering your question. Would you rather the Rams win 17-3, or would you rather them win? Because keep in mind, it's a 14-point win. Or would you rather have, let's say, 24-10, or let's just say 27-13? Personally, I think 17-3, because I think the defense doing what they did, holding them to 3 points, the second fewest points in Ravens history in Baltimore, I think that was more impressive.
I agree. I think that, any time that you can hold a team to 3 points is a statement game. And I think especially kind of where the Rams are at, for the defense to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Very great.
Yeah. So going back to the offense, we talk about Puka Nacua. He gets hurt.
Yeah.
But you just mentioned Tutu Atwell was hurt. So it wasn't just a simple, oh, well, Nakua's out, but you have Atwell. No, it was more so, you don't have Atwell, who is the deep threat. You don't have Nacua, who's the underneath threat. And now Devontae Adams has to win, likely going to be double teamed the rest of the game at that point. Jordan Whittington had some drops, was kind of disappointing. I mean, I like that he got opportunities, but it was disappointing that he didn't make the most of them. But you did see that explosiveness, and I'm not out on him or anything like that. Konate Mumfield caught his first pass of his career, so shout out to him on the bubble screen to pick up the first down. Funny, they've done that now twice. Last week, it was to Terrence Ferguson on that back shoulder fade. Had to have it on a 3rd and 4. And then this week, I think it was like a 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5. They go 7 yards to Konate Mumfield. And first thing I thought was, oh, they're running the ball, because when Konate Mumfield's out there, he's just out there to block. And they had me fooled. They actually threw it to him. So you like to see things like that. You like to see Xavier Smith getting involved. But they missed Tutu Atwell. There are a lot of things that they were trying to activate in this offense, especially with, let's be honest here. When you look at the offensive line, the way they protected, you got to give a lot of credit. I don't care that there was help with the chipping. I do not care. Warren McClendon Jr. looked better than at any point Rob Havenstein has looked this year. And I'm a huge Rob fan. And then in addition to that, Alec Jackson was great. In addition to that, Steve Avila returned, and he looked the part. I said it, 16 reps is all he had in pass pro in week 1 against the Texans. And I'm like, that's Steve Avila. That he is back to where he was his rookie year. He is that good. He made a immediate impact, was one of the highest rated offensive guards in the league according to PFF this week. And there's a reason. He was outstanding, really impressive stuff from the offensive line. And this is where I bring my final point. Although I really like seeing what Tyler Higbee did as well. But my final point here is this. Not having Tutu Atwell, not having Puka Nacua, there's a lot of moments in the game where Stafford has more time than maybe he needed. And I think those are the moments where now a long developing deep ball would have made a lot of sense. Maybe McVay could have gotten, Jordan Whittington to stretch the field a little bit, and he could absolutely do that, but he didn't. It feels like there's a comfortability with Atwell, but nobody else. And so I think they were really missing Atwell in this game, especially when Nacua went down. And so you saw extra time, and Stafford kind of ended up holding on to the football and not throwing the football that I think he probably throws last year and the year prior. There's definitely been conversations, and there's been decisions made on the part of Stafford. You can tell he's not trying to fit it into a tight window as often, because even though he can, and he's got the crazy God-given talent, he also is aware the way he's playing football right now is at an MVP clip. And he's not trying to essentially keep his stats looking good. He's trying to make sure he doesn't turn the ball over. Only 2 interceptions this year. The fumble sucks. That was a blown up rep by Coleman Shelton. But Alexis, only 3 pressures from this offensive line. That is just what the doctor ordered for the Rams. And I'm excited for the future because I understand this was not the best pass rush. We talked about it. Odafe Away is out. Nnamdi Madubuike is out. but I was really impressed with those guys. I'm hoping it translates because next week it's not going to be easy against a really good defense in the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I agree. I think that, both things can be true. And Blaine Grisack, who you and I both know, and who's a great content creator, for the Rams as well on X. And I'm gonna butcher this. I don't remember what he said word for word, but he pulled up some stats and he basically said two things can be true. The Ravens pass rush can be like not great, but the Rams offensive line also played really good. Those can be simultaneously true. And I think, for a game like this, for where the Rams are at and really kind of needing to prove that they could have that chemistry, that they could protect Stafford, that they could put together a complete game, they made the most of their opportunities. That, all you can do is make the most of the opportunities you're given. And I thought they did a really good job. Really for most of the game against Baltimore. I mean, you mentioned the fumble. That was unfortunate, but, we got that out of the way. Stafford fumble, just, whatever, first drive. I think what was unfortunate about that is the fact that it came just after a Quentin Lake interception. Because we get the Quentin Lake's interception and then the next play was the fumble. So that was a little bit of a bummer. But again, that first quarter was just really weird. I think we can all agree that the first quarter was just really weird. It was strange. Maybe it was the 30-mile-an-hour winds. Whatever. Weird energy in the air. So yeah,
weird.
no, I'm very optimistic for how this offense looks, going forward. And I know, you bring up Puka Nacua, who got injured. Sounds like it's an ankle sprain, and it sounds like, the game in London for him is a little bit up in the air. Probably could go, maybe. Some people think, other people think not. I think I'm in kind of the camp, like when you have a talent like Puka Nacua, like you're not pushing it, in my opinion. I know that it's tough because, Jacksonville is a very, very good team, and that's going to be a really hard game. And all of the London games this year have been so bizarre
Oh,
that
yeah.
it's like, who knows what's in store next Sunday for the Rams and the Jaguars. But I don't want Puka to be in a position where he makes that injury worse. And then, we lose him for more time, but we'll see. But the point of that was, Puka Nacua gets hurt, he goes out. Blake Corum was injured for a little bit. He ended up coming back as well, which was a good sign. But we did, see in Puka's absence, some of these other receivers getting touches. Jake, what were your thoughts about the call with Terrence Ferguson on third down, kind of the jet sweep?
Part of me likes it because I like the creativity. Part of me doesn't like it because I know who Terrence Ferguson is. And while he's a great athlete, he's got build-up speed. What I mean is it takes him about 10, 15 yards to really move upfield. And
Yeah.
that's why, as a deep threat, he can be a problem. But he doesn't have that explosion that you're looking for. Fannin didn't have that. Warren, I guess, to a degree, but like none of the tight ends have that explosion where you could just do an end around and they're just going to explode. You know what I mean? I would probably say the closest thing, maybe Arroyo, in Seattle. But like, that's the thing. You do something like that, the guy has to be like quick and just
Yeah.
take off like a rocket. And I just didn't feel like that was the best course of action. I don't think Tyler Higbee scores on that. Davis Allen definitely doesn't. Colby Parkinson. So Terrence Ferguson might have had the best shot, but I just don't think that is a winning play there, especially because I didn't like the way it was blocked either. I would have done
Yeah.
that to Jordan. I would have faked it to Jordan Whittington and thrown it into the flat and had some sort of like maybe like a screen or something like that for Ferguson.
Yeah.
But I think they got to throw the ball to him. You got to get him involved in the receiving game. I do think we are going to see more of that moving forward. Do we see that against Jacksonville? That I don't know. But I do think off the bye is when I'm expecting to see 18 kind of get let loose a little bit. Maybe like 4 catches, 50 yards, and a touchdown soon, right? We'll see. But if this Puka Nacua injury is going to hold him out longer than maybe a game or two, even post-bye, then I think it does open the door for them to want to use, Terrence Ferguson more. So yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't think that they should put out Puka Nacua until he's ready. I don't think they should even waste any time putting him out there, having him play injured, because let me ask you this. Would the Rams have won Super Bowl 56 without Cooper Kupp?
No.
No, right? Puka Nacua is Cooper Kupp in 2021, right now. That's what he is to this team. As much as I love this team and I believe they are going to win the Super Bowl, that is with the understanding they have a clean bill of health where, yeah, injuries can happen, but you can't lose Nacua. You can't lose Stafford. Like, you can't have those guys gone. And so for me, I'm just trying to make sure he's healthy. He's 100% ready to go when he can. But I do think this is a blessing in disguise because, one, think about it. Even though the injury happened, that's wear and tear off of him. Okay, he missed most of the game. He's going to probably miss the Jacksonville game. Then he gets a bye. You could hold him out another week against the Saints and then have him for the 49ers game. That's 2 full games and then a full week off and basically a half a game off where there's no wear and tear. And the way he plays the position, there's going to be wear and tear. So I actually think it's a blessing in disguise in that regard, as well as the fact that they can get other guys involved and maybe get them more reps than they normally would have had. You talk about a Tutu Atwell, a Jordan Whittington, Mumfield, Xavier Smith. Maybe you call up Brennan Presley from the practice squad, guys like that, right? So I do think that's an opportunity. And Stafford, like, people act like Stafford needs all these top weapons, and that just couldn't be further from the truth. I remember he was throwing to Adrian Peterson in Detroit, who was on his way out the door and out of the NFL. He was throwing to Danny Amendola at the very end of his career. He's throwing to guys like Zach Zenner. You know, he's throwing to, like, that's the thing, is that Stafford is throwing to all sorts of receivers. He doesn't just need to throw to the big names. So I think that'll be good for him. I think, yeah, it's a blessing in disguise because he doesn't need to go out there and get, potentially hurt playing injured because of how deep the Rams' weapons are. And does this mean that maybe, you use Kyren Williams in the slot sometimes and you put Blake Corum at running back on those plays? Or maybe you bring in, a Jarquez Hunter and you put Kyren in the slot. I think Kyren's pass catching ability offers something that they didn't have before. They can put him out in the slot. We see the Bills do this sometimes with James Cook. We've seen this with Bijan Robinson with the Falcons. We've seen this with Christian McCaffrey and the 49ers. I would like to see them do stuff like that. I'd like to see them get T. Ferg involved more. We saw Tyler Higbee get more involved and look like Tyler Higbee. So it's going to be interesting, but I do believe this is a blessing in disguise, and the Rams should not be forcing their hand to get Puka Nacua involved if he's not healthy.
I agree. I just don't think it's worth it. I think that, you risk not having him involved for 1 game, maybe 2 games, instead of putting him out there and then risking he's out the entire season, right? You can't afford to take that risk with him. And then, you're going to have to look at guys like Devontae Adams, right? Getting him more involved. And he's been involved, but I think the chemistry with Stafford at times is still not quite where maybe Rams fans would like it to be. I think Stafford's been missing Adams in a couple of these. Although I do think that play in the red zone, I thought Adams should have came down with that. That could have been a touchdown, but they'll get there. I mean, they still have their moments as well. I mean, his chemistry with Kyren as a receiver, I think, is heating up. I mean, we've seen Kyren get really involved in the passing game, particularly the game against the 49ers, 2 receiving touchdowns. His play on 4th down this game, I mean, you talk about a play of the game. It felt like that was like the turning point for the Rams, because that set up his touchdown. Then the Rams were kind of able to, I feel like, defensively then keep it up and then offensively, close out the game. But, maybe we start to see Jordan Whittington get some more touches. Tutu Atwell is going to come back. It sounds like it was just a 1-game injury, so he'll be involved again. But I really want to see Terrence Ferguson involved. He's your 2nd-round pick at tight end. That he could be a vertical threat. That he's a red zone threat. the Rams have to fix the red zone problem. They just have to. I don't care if you run the ball 3 times when you're first and goal, if that's what it takes, because we have to start walking away from the red zone with touchdowns. Especially because our special teams unit and kicking unit is struggling. And I think it's really, really frustrating. We talk about 17-3. This could have been 27-3, could have been 20-3, right? You look at all of the drives, that stall out because the Rams can't figure it out in the red zone. And I think it's a couple different things, but I think number one, play calling is just not sufficient in the red zone. I mean, that third and fourth call I thought was ridiculous with like Terrence Ferguson. I don't know what he was trying to prove there, McVay, but like it was bad that you don't put your 6'5" tight end running the jet sweep on 3rd and 4. Like it just was so bizarre to me. Like these play calls have to be better. Like I said, if you have to run it 3 times, and it has to be the most boring drive ever, I mean, at least it's not, we don't do the tush push.
Yeah, well,
Throw some shade there, right? At least
yeah,
we're not doing, but like I don't care what you have to do, but just get it done in the red zone. I think that we're at a place now in the season where the Rams really need to figure it out. But other than that, like offensively, not too many complaints, especially when the offensive line looks like it's starting to kind of hold up. I mean, we'll see how they do against Jacksonville. It'll be a much different story, a much different pass rush. But I think first and foremost, I think that's, the issue right now. The biggest
yeah.
issue for the Rams, I think, is the red zone.
Yeah, well, absolutely. The red zone is the biggest issue, aside from the special teams, obviously, which is the biggest issue. I mean, so much so, I don't really know what to say at this point. I don't like calling for people's jobs, but Chase Blackburn needs to turn this thing around, without a doubt. They are ranked 30th, tied with the Packers for second worst in the league, according to PFF. And I don't know if you saw my tweet, but I thought it was interesting. I was doing some research today, and look, I don't look at PFF like it's the Bible, but I do think that some of their metrics are interesting. And I don't know if you knew this, but PFF has the Rams as the number 1 overall team in the NFL. They have them as the 2nd offensive team. They have them as the 3rd defensive team. They have the number 1 passing offense. They have the 4th run defense, the 5th pass rush, 5th coverage. There's a lot of stuff there. But the point being is PFF thinks the Rams are doing a great job. And I keep saying this. And I was saying it with the 49ers game. And I just think if they had lost that game to anyone that's not the 49ers, I think that there's a bias there. Rightfully so. There's a rivalry. And I think especially people in LA, they needed that win. And so it doesn't matter. It wouldn't have mattered what the Rams did against the Ravens. There are a lot of people that are still really upset that they lost to the 49ers the way they did. If they lost that same way to the Seahawks, to the Cardinals, to the Patriots, to the Steelers, it wouldn't have mattered. The Raiders would not have mattered. The 49ers, it's different. And so I think, Alexis, what I'm noticing is that there are a lot of fans that are actually clouding really what the Rams truly are. They're not really being satisfied with what they are. And I understand it, but at the same time, I think they got something special here. And I think when you look across the league, as I mentioned earlier, there's not really anybody that's playing great football. But I found it interesting because PFF has them as the number 1 overall team. So again, not the Bible, right? But they are tied with the Steelers for 2nd in takeaways. And they forced the most fumbles. They average a fumble forced a game. Thank you, cough, cough, Nate Landman, who was insane. Yeah. The team score against them 18.3 points per game. That's 3rd behind only Houston and Denver. That would be the best for their entire McVay run. That would be the best defensive output. They're on pace to have 28 turnovers, which would be the 2nd most since, actually, it would be tied for the most since 2017. And I'll just say this. My father brought this up. His research, the last 20 teams in the Super Bowl, the last 10 years, right? Only 5 finished outside the top 4 in PFF rankings. 9 of the last 10 years, The team that was number one in PFF rankings was in the Super Bowl. So I understand there's a lot of people that want to be like, oh, Rams didn't play anybody, and it was Cooper Rush, and they lost to the 49ers JV team, and they lost to the Eagles. And but here's the thing. Everyone, out of every team in this league, no one has really stood up and said, I'm the best, I'm the alpha dog, I'm the captain of the ship. When you look at the Rams, they have a lot of different things that are going well for them quietly. And when things come together, this could compile and just they could go nuclear in the second half. And that's kind of what I'm expecting. So, yeah, I think really just kind of looking at the way the defense is playing, looking at the passing attack, I don't think people realize what the Rams are building. But again, a team that has already shown you, Sean McVay that has already shown you, he's figured out how to coach in the second half of seasons. Like, watch out. Like, you know, and so I understand, like, yeah, not the most exciting win, but it was a good win, and I'm expecting them to keep this thing going.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, and I think, I'm really curious to see going forward what happens with special teams because that's just
Yes,
it's a massive red flag, and I don't particularly know what the course of action is. I think that there's been a lot of unfair blame put on Joshua Karty.
totally agree.
And I think that's really unfortunate. And I think that, obviously the team knows what's going on. And I think McVay was very fair with his comments about special teams and standing by Joshua Karty. And I think if the Rams can figure that out, then everything else is just kind of like these minor tweaks that you need to make. And I think that, we talk about the offensive line. They looked good this game. We might be having a different discussion, like I said, after next week. But, for now, I'm really happy to see what the progress is with the offensive line. We could figure things out and, in the red zone. And, Jake, closing out this episode, talking about stars of the game, looking at the defense. I mean, Nate Landman, Jared Verse. I mean, listen, people are sometimes hard on Jared Verse, I think unjustifiably so. I know that sometimes he leaves sacks out there, right? But I mean, he has been playing great football. He is him. And again, nobody's perfect. He has these little things that he can work on. But you look at like the game that like him and Landman had, and the kind
Oh,
of just
yeah.
the stand that the defense makes. I mean, this defense is no joke. And I know that there's some concerns in the secondary. Those, we'll see if the Rams address those or not. I thought they had a much better game against the Ravens than they have in previous games. But I mean, the defense for the Rams right now has been what's been keeping the Rams in games, especially with these red zone problems that we talk about. I mean, the Rams offense is getting, I think they're figuring it out, but they aren't going out there and just like lighting it up and scoring touchdowns every drive and letting the defense have room for error. The defense is the one kind of going out there giving the offense room for error. So, and they're only going to get better in my opinion going forward.
I agree completely. Like how I see the red zone offense is going to get better. I think this defense is only going to get better, and they're already really good. That 49er game just has people kind of focused on, oh, well, they gave it up to, they made Kendrick Bourne look like Jerry Rice. You're right. They absolutely did. They let Mac Jones go for 342 yards. That did happen. But you know what they did this week? They went back to what they've been doing against CJ Stroud, what they did against Jalen Hurts, what they've just been doing. And that is just dominating off the edge, dominating in coverage. They did a really nice job. I was really impressed. One, the pass rush was really good. Okay. You look at Byron Young, he's absolutely taken another step. He has as many sacks this year as he had all of last year through 6 games. He had 6 pressures in this game. Jared Verse had 8 pressures in this game. Josiah Stewart looks like one of the best rookies in the league. And they're not even asking him to play a ton of reps, but when he comes in, he's like an Energizer bunny, can stop the run, can rush the passer, can disengage. He won over 40% of his pass rushing snaps. He also can drop into coverage. He was great. Okay, Nick Hampton helps you in the run game. Then the interior, right? Braden Fisk, didn't think that was his best game against the run. I did think that was one of his better pass rushing games. Won over 20% of his reps. That's insane for an interior defensive lineman that isn't named Aaron Donald. In addition to that, Poona Ford Poona Ford blew up that fourth down run to Derrick Henry. Poona Ford blows up almost every run, it feels like. He's a big reason why they're so dominant against the run. Poona Ford had 3 pressures to go with his dominance in the run game and basically won over 14% of those pass rushing reps. Kobe Turner didn't win as many, but he still had 3 pressures. He still helped in the run game, and he was great. So you have that pass rush. You have that run defense. You have the defensive front. Then you factor in the job Nate Landman is doing. He needs to be signed. He looks like a combination of a few different players that played for the Rams. You look at Corey Littleton. I think he shows some of that. He shows some of James Laurinaitis. He has some Mark Barron in his game. There's a lot. I mean, he's a combination of a lot of different inside backers for the Rams in the past, and he's somebody that I would 100% bring back. Then you have Troy Reeder play a little bit, and he wasn't bad, but I like him a lot more on special teams, where I think he's one of the better special teamers, doesn't get credit. Sean Dolak was everywhere as well. So in 6 games, his first 6 games as a Ram, Nate Landman just set a record for most tackles in a game in franchise history was 17. It was so crazy. The broadcast had no idea if he had the record. They just put it's the most tackles since it was like since 2004 or likely
2001,
since
I think.
Oh yeah, likely since like what, like they had no idea. It is a franchise record. He's been on a tear. He forced a fumble. The linebacker room was great. The corners were great. Darius Williams turned back the clock and basically said F you to the Ravens for letting him go for Jimmy Smith back in the day when the Rams got him. And Emmanuel Forbes, probably the most comfortable he's looked like as a Ram. I thought he looked really good. Kobe Durant was good. Quentin Lake was, every week we're talking about Quentin Lake being a star. He gets his first interception. Obviously, he had one against the Seahawks his rookie year. It got called back due to the penalty. But he gets his first career interception, gets a fumble recovery. Lake was everywhere. He's so good. Cam Kinchins, Cam Curl, Jalen McCullough. This is one of the best defenses in all of football. They continue to show that. That game against the 49ers on a short week sucked, but they only gave up 26. It's not like they gave up 46. And then they follow it up by traveling across the country that we all take for granted. That is not an easy trip. I, for one, know this. I was not feeling myself when I came back from LA. Now imagine, you come back, like say you're coming from New York, you're going to LA or LA to New York or whatever, right? You're going across the country and now you have to go out there and you have to play. You have to play in a game. You have to play football. It's a lot. But Sean McVay has had this thing throughout his tenure as a Rams head coach where he makes sure that these guys are ready to play when it matters. And that is something I've always appreciated. Sean McVay gets his guys prepared to play on the East Coast. A lot of teams have automatic losses on the schedule because everyone and their mother knows they will not be ready when the time comes to travel across the country. The Rams almost always are, and that is a really underrated aspect of it. So yes, Alexis, this defense looks really freaking good. And they're without Ahkello Witherspoon. They're without Omar Spades. And yet, look how good they already look. Imagine what happens when they get Ahkello Witherspoon back, who can match up against any big-bodied receiver in the league. That right there is what they're missing.
Yeah, it's been really, really fun to watch this defense when they get in stride and, they get hot, for sure. Like I said, I think that that's a huge part of what is making the Rams successful. And you bring up kind of the traveling. It's going to be really interesting to see, the London game. And we're going to have a whole episode about that. We won't, start previewing that yet, but, they are playing next week in London against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So for you Pacific Coasters, that's going to be a very early football game. For you guys, it's still going to be early, for me in the Midwest and, you in the East Coast. But yeah, it sounds like based on what we've seen on socials, the Rams are just staying in Baltimore. They're not even coming back to Los Angeles. Yep, they're having practice at the Baltimore Orioles Stadium. So if you guys didn't know that, go check it out. There's some pics on social media. They've turned Camden Yards into a football field in the outfield. It's pretty wild. But the Rams are staying there obviously to just try and avoid kind of what Jake was talking about of like going from Baltimore back to LA to London. Like it's already going to be a big adjustment going to London, so I think they're just trying to take as much travel out of it as possible. So that's where the Rams are going to be for the remainder of the week, out in Baltimore before the London game. But Jake, I think just in closing, this game against the Ravens, was really pleased by the majority of things, we saw. I think the complaints that I think we all had are just the same things we've been complaining about. We were mad about what's going on in the red zone, um, you know, special teams, which we touched on. These are things that there's no new issues that I think we really saw arise, and hopefully going against Jacksonville, which, like I said, we'll preview, these things can get cleaned up because that is a very good football team.
That is true. Before we go, we have super chats and we have a word from Sleeper, because if you have not already gotten involved, you definitely need to. Sleeper is daily fantasy. You can basically choose whether a certain player you think he's going to have more yards or more touchdowns or what have you. You can choose all that. And it's not just football. It's all sorts of sports. It's a home for fantasy sports as well. Just straight up fantasy, dynasty fantasy. I know our dynasty league is on there. So definitely be sure to check out Sleeper. Use the code JKB. You'll get a 100% match up to $100. And of course, the $20 free entry, which I love that they're doing this. No deposit needed. So you can just get in on the action. The link is in the description below for Sleeper. Definitely be sure to check them out. Sleeper, of course, is sponsoring this channel, so really do appreciate them. And now we have Super Chats. So let's start off here with Cheeky Metro. Who would you pick, Akello or B. Young, for a new contract? So
Thank you, Cheeky.
thank you for the Super Chat. This is like kind of interesting because Akello wouldn't really cost much compared to Byron Young. Akello's in his 30s. He should cost a decent amount, but I don't think he's going to cost a lot. Whereas I think Byron Young could be really expensive. You're talking about potentially a 26, 27-year-old pass rusher who right now has 7.5 sacks, who right now is one of the better pass rushers in the league. If he keeps this going, because I think the biggest knock on Byron Young is that second half of the season, he kind of starts to fade off a little bit. If he doesn't do that, he's going to get paid. So that's the thing. Byron, I don't think it's as simple as just going Byron Young because of how much money you're going to have to pay him. Who's the better player? It's probably Byron Young right now. I haven't seen Akello play in a minute, but I think when Akello's back, you're going to understand why. I mean, his presence is already missing. Okay, so it's a good question, Cheeky. Alexis, what would you say?
I mean, if I had to choose between both of them, if it came down to could only be one or the other, I would say Byron Young.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, the Rams are going to need to pay him sooner than later. I think that, there's a chance that he really explodes the second half of the season. And it'll be curious. I think it'll be curious though, because it is interesting. He is like, I don't want to say older, but 26, 27, right? It's different than signing a 24-year-old, 25-year-old just coming out. I don't know. I mean, this is going to be his first big contract. So, and I think with the way that he's playing, I'm interested what that number will be. Because there's a lot of discussion about that. But it's going to be a big, big price.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. And I see Akello. Will Akello be back this year? Yes, he'll be back. I'm not worried about Akello returning. It's more so when does he return? I will say this. I think he's just going to miss Alexis in that Seattle game, unfortunately. I'd love to see him wear the black uniform. Yes, I'm calling it black. I don't care what they call it. I'd love to see him wear the black uniform. I don't think he's going to get a chance to. I think it'll be so what is that for people that are wondering? That would be against the Buccaneers on Sunday Night Football. Probably the most important game left on the schedule because that could decide the number 1 seed the way things are looking. So Yeah, that's kind of what I see. I don't know about you, Alexis, but I mean, he's been out since the Titans game. And okay, so that would be he missed the Eagles, Colts, 49ers, Ravens. That's 4 games. Jaguars would be 5, then a bye, so count that as 6 weeks. 7 with the Saints, 8 with the 49ers, 9 with the Seahawks. That would be 10 going into the Buccaneers. I think he could be back by the Buccaneers game. I think he'll definitely be back by the Lions game. I'll say that. But yeah, it's so frustrating. I mean, it's kind of, I guess in a way, it's a little bit of a blessing in disguise because now when you get Ahkello Witherspoon back, he's going to be playing like he's already acclimated in the system. He had a full off season, but now he has no wear and tear whatsoever. Like obviously had the injury, but if he rehabs and successfully comes back from it, he is just going to be very ready to go. He's not going to be a corner that's been playing for 14 weeks. He's just going to be ready to go in the second half of the year. And that can be very critical for having him, on their postseason run. So there's something interesting about that. Also, absence makes the heart grow fonder. And his absence in this defense, Alexis, you're on Twitter, you see it. I feel like people are finally, and obviously there are fans out there, people that watch this, they appreciate Ahkello, but there are people that even used to not appreciate Ahkello. They used to hate on him. And they're even saying, man, we really took 4 for granted. And I'm like, kind of told you this. So, hey, that could bode well for him too. Maybe the Rams also are seeing that and they're like, yeah, we did kind of take him for granted. So, yeah, we appreciate the super. 88 horror fan, thank you for the 5.
Thank you.
Hey, Jake, I'm glad we won. A win is a win. However, I still can't believe how McVay chose not to take the 3 points and make it a 3-possession game in the 4th. I understand that. I would say this. In that moment, that just felt like I want a touchdown here. I want to get these guys going. I want to start doing things in the red zone. I don't mind being aggressive. I don't think it had anything to do with Josh Karty. It probably had more to do with just the kicking operation itself. But I think it had less to do with the kicking operation, more that I just want to put up 6. I feel like, they should have had the touchdown to Devontae Adams that he dropped. I know Stafford kind of put it a little high, but Adams got 2 hands on it. You got to catch it. That's how I viewed it. But Alexis, how did you view it? Because I had 0 issue with going for the touchdown.
I agree with you. I think it was just like we got to start proving that we can score touchdowns. And so I think it was just that mindset. Let's do it. I didn't have an issue with it. So yeah,
not really.
I thought
much
they should
else
have
to
gone
say.
for it.
Yeah.
Yep. But
And this one, JU, appreciate the super. Karty
Thank
has to
you.
go, Jake. Enough already. I think if you saw my JE live, you know my take on this. I really just can't. I can't disagree enough. I appreciate the super, but with all due respect, I just think it's a very emotionally reactive reaction, if you will, with Josh Karty. If you guys want to go to Lucas Haversick and Brett Maher all over again, by all means, sign yourselves up, but don't sign me up. I'm not about that. Josh Karty was fantastic last year. He hit 26 straight kicks before actually missing one, which of course was blocked. I think it's in his head because guys in front of him have failed miserably. And they're trying to get it fixed, and I think it's getting better. But now it's a matter of, I think a lot of what Pat McAfee said, there could be some truth to him having that knuckleball kick, and now all of a sudden, he does that. Maybe it's affecting his kicking rhythm, but I just think it's a very knee-jerk reaction, and I try to avoid those. So again, respect your opinion. I personally don't subscribe to the notion that Karty is the issue. I don't think Karty needs to go. I think we have to have some patience. I saw people saying, why didn't they bring in Eddie Pinheiro to compete? And I'll just say, I hate the idea of bringing in any kicker to compete unless your guy is really that bad. You drafted this guy last year. He was a breath of fresh air, and then he was great in the postseason. And now a few fluky things have gone on, and now you want to move on from him. Be careful what you wish for, because I'll tell you right now, first off, kicker competition is about as useful as having a fullback on your roster. Absolutely useless in 2025. There are 53 men on a roster. There is no way that I am keeping 2 kickers. Okay, it's just not happening. They cut Chris Paul Jr., right? They cut Willie Lampkin. They cut these guys because they didn't have enough room because of how talented they are. You want them to cut one of these guys to bring in a backup kicker? It just doesn't make any sense. So obviously I'm not saying that that's you, JU, but a lot of people bring that up, and I just think it's a lot of knee-jerk reactions. But Alexis, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm in the same school of thought as you. I just think, what we've seen to start the season with these kicking woes is really stemming from what's up front, not so much Joshua Karty. I don't think he's been perfect, but I think that whole unit is just bad, and I think it's hard to be able to judge Joshua Karty based on people failing to do their jobs, right? So it's kind of like, if we had a perfect blocking, perfect special teams unit, and Joshua Karty was just going out there and getting perfect balls and just missing them, it would be a different story, but that's just absolutely not what's happening. I think that they need to fix it. And I think that, if games go on and they do fix everything else and Karty still is unable to, make some of these kicks or still has these weird fluky things happen, then we can have that conversation. But I just think it's kind of unfair to judge him based off what we've seen happen, which is just the special teams unit falling apart, which is bad. I mean, it's horrible. And the Rams need to fix it, but I don't think that particularly falls just on Joshua Karty. So yeah, that I agree with you.
Yeah, I think you gotta worry about flying too close to the sun on those things, because when you start, see, that's the thing I keep seeing. Karty has what Karty has is mental. Well, if you think it's mental, then going online and trying to push this guy out the door, I don't think it's going to help those mental lapses, right? I don't want to see the entire city push him out. This is not Jake Moody, and I'm so tired of hearing that. Jake Moody is kicking right now for the Bears. And people are like, well, the 49ers got Eddie Pinheiro, and he's doing great. Maybe that's what we should do. Jake Moody was a top 3 round pick. I believe he was picked in the 3rd round by the 49ers a few years ago and was horrendous. He was so bad. Karty was great his rookie year, and now people want to give up on him after 6 games. This his 2nd year. I just don't subscribe to that. And I mean, people keep saying, well, he missed all these field goals. No, he didn't. 3 of them were blocked. I mean, then I hear the trajectory talk, and I'm like, okay, you want to talk about trajectory? How about this, okay? If Ethan Evans had 3 blocked punts, are you complaining about his trajectory? Or is that just, hey, they screwed up? Because guess what? That's what's happening with the kicker. Okay? They're screwing up. They're not doing their job. That's the reality of it. I don't care what anyone says. That is now gotten in Karty's head. And we'll see if it gets out. I'm not giving up on him. And the last thing I'll say is we can't just say all the time, Jake and Alexis and so forth, you guys should trust in Sean McVay, when there are people that don't trust in Sean McVay. It's like, well, we have a difference of opinion, and that's fine, but we're trying to offer up solutions, and we've been met with, oh, well, we'll trust in the experts, we'll trust in Sean McVay, we'll trust in Les Snead. But then on the flip side of that, the same people that say that will tell us, well, yeah, Sean McVay's wrong. It's like, so yeah, I'm kind of just I'm kind of over the rapid reaction, knee-jerk reaction discord on Josh Karty. I think it's just, I just don't think it's based in reality, personally. Everyone's entitled to their opinion, but I can't even compute. I honestly think people are joking. I can't even tell if people are serious. I almost feel like it's kind of like I'm being punked, because it's so ridiculous to get rid of Josh Karty when they had an issue a legitimate kicker issue in 2023 with Lucas Haversick in Brett Maher. If you want to go back to that, by all means. But anyway, let's see here. So we got WSG Good. Thank you for the 5. Hey,
Thank
Jake
you.
and AK, who do you think will trade for at the deadline? And also, you think not having LaFleur at least influence play calling affect the red zone? I it's interesting. I would like to see McVay give up play calling. I've always said that just because I'd like him to focus on other things. I think he gets too into it. I think he calls some great plays. He has some great play designs, but I think there's some times where he just tries to get too cute. I mean, the evidence is right there, Alexis. I mean, how many times should they just have run it with Kyron and they'd have way more touchdowns than they currently have? That said, I also I don't really feel like he's ever going to give up play calling, so I've kind of almost waved the white flag on that. As far as who I think they'll trade for at the deadline, it's tough to say. I can't tell who's good, who's bad. I mean, really, it doesn't seem like anybody's good. It doesn't seem like, anybody knows who's bad except for the Jets. So I don't know who's going to be sellers. That's the problem.
There's nobody, everybody that I kind of was looking at is not an option or isn't happening anymore. So there's nobody that I really want the Rams to trade for. I want them to explore probably looking for a corner. I'm not opposed to looking for offensive line help, but there's nothing really in my mind that I'm dying for the Rams to do. In terms of play calling, I would like to see LaFleur at least influence it. I'm not happy with it. So I'm kind of in that school of thought. I mean, something has to give in the red zone. I mean, we've said it a million times, so I know people are probably over it, but it has to change. We cannot keep going into the red zone and not scoring. And in my opinion, the play calling is the biggest problem that we're seeing in the red zone. So I would like to see somebody else take that over.
Yeah, I mean, I totally hear you. The trade deadline one, really appreciate the super chat. This is such a great question. I just don't have the answer in week 6. I have guys that maybe they could be interested in. I just don't know if they'll be available. I look at, the Ravens, as bad as it looks, and they're 1-5, they have a winnable schedule to get back to 500 and then potentially go on a little bit of a run when, Lamar Jackson comes back. So if the Ravens aren't trading anybody, or if they are, then, I think Cheetah Awuzie, Marlon Humphrey could be options. Maybe Jair Alexander. True. But I don't know, man. I kind of feel like the Rams are, it's weird because every year the Rams have gone to the Super Bowl, they've made a big trade, whether that's Dante Fowler Jr. or Von Miller. They don't have an edge need. That's kind of the thing that kind of changes everything, is that typically edge defenders are the ones that get traded. Trading a cornerback is tough. Trading an offensive lineman is tough.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And I mean, I don't know. So that's kind of where I'm at on that.
We're in agreement. And we thank everybody for tuning in. It's much more fun to do these types of game recaps when they're wins.
Yes.
And so the last game recap that we had, not so much a good vibe. But guys, as we mentioned earlier, the next game is going to be in London against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So that will be a fun one to kind of preview and cover. And Jake and I will be back Friday night previewing that. And we will be up early Sunday morning with all of you watching it as well. And so these London games, they have been fluky and weird as hell this season. It has been just really, really interesting to see what goes on in London. So it'll be an interesting game to kind of talk about and witness and see what happens, and we hope that the Rams are able to go overseas and get the win. But I think that's going to do it for us. Jake.
Yeah.
It's going to do it for us tonight, guys. As always, if you like what you hear, please like and subscribe. You can follow us on social media at Downtown Rams. You can follow me on Twitter/X at the Alexis Craft. You can follow Jake at JK Bogan. And guys, we'll be back Friday night. But until then, stay safe, take care, and go Rams.